You're listening to an encore presentation of Life Talk with Wade Sorochan. Highlights of previous shows featuring special guests and open line discussions. Since this is a pre-recorded presentation, please do not call. And now, Live Talk with Wade Sorochan on AM 930, The Light.
Welcome back to the program. Well, the Canadian Dermatology Association has launched a new campaign which features melanoma survivors warning young women about indoor tanning. The CDA has long advocated against indoor tanning use, but with its Indoor Tanning is Out campaign, the CDA is targeting young women with its message. The association says melanoma has become the third most common form of cancer among young Canadian women, and 5 melanoma survivors in their 20s will be among those featured in posters sharing their experiences. TV and radio public service announcements will also be aired up until June. And joining me on the phone line right now from his office in Vancouver is Dr. Jason Rivers, a member of the Canadian Dermatology Association. Dr. Rivers, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
I guess the basic question first off the top here, is there scientific proof that using a tanning bed increases the risk of cancer?
I think there is mounting evidence that tanning beds do increase the risk for all forms of skin cancer. Recently, a publication came out in a magazine called Lancet Oncology last August, in which the International Agency on Research Against Cancer reviewed all the data available regarding potential risks of tanning beds and cancer. And what they've concluded is that there is a significant risk when you use these devices, especially if you start using them when you're young of age. I think the key thing to remember, too, is that the tanning industry often says that the risk factor is not super high, and although people are getting tan, that is not the equivalent of getting burned, so it doesn't increase your risk. I think it's very important at the outset to say that tanning beds deliver ultraviolet radiation, both in the UVB and UVA components, and these are both known to be carcinogenic in animals and in humans. And it is very illogical to say that exposing yourself to radiation which can cause cancer will prevent you from getting the same cancer. Furthermore, I think it's important to point out that there have been no studies to show that tanning beds prevent any forms of cancer. So the message that is being promulgated by the tanning industry is of health and safety have really not been substantiated.
And also recently the World Health Organization moved up to the highest cancer risk category, Group 1, tanning beds, which is what you just said, carcinogenic to humans.
That's correct. I use the analogy, if you're somebody who doesn't want to get lung cancer, you don't stand around in a room full of smoke so that when you start smoking yourself, you're not going to get lung cancer. Preventing a cancer or an exposure to a cancer can't be accomplished by exposing yourself to the agent that causes the cancer.
Why do you think people are denying it if the facts are the facts?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. Number one, the industry that promotes tanning is a huge industry. There's a lot of money to be made in tanning. Our society still believes that a tan is a healthy thing, that you'll look better with a tan, you're more attractive. And yet we know that tanning per se has only come into vogue in the last 60 to 70 years. And we certainly know the health benefits related to tanning beds are limited. One of the key things that tanning people are trying to get across is that by going to a tanning bed, you'll increase your vitamin D level substantially. And that vitamin D will prevent you from getting all kinds of different cancers. Well, the issue to do with vitamin D is that most of the studies that have shown this are from dietary sources of vitamin D, supplementation, not from sunlight. And certainly, I think one of the key things with regards to this is that when you go to a tanning bed and you go a couple of times a week, you're paying $3 to $5 a visit. You can get your vitamin D in a pill form at 5 cents a day. As a cost benefit, you're certainly ahead just to take the vitamin supplementation. At the Canadian Dermatology Association, we're not advocating that people shouldn't go outdoor. We're simply talking about moderation. And when we're talking about tanning beds, this is a device which puts out 5 times to 20 times the amount of radiation you get from sunlight. And so it's really not that conceivable that you're actually doing anything positive for your skin. And in the long run, we also know that these devices will prematurely age your skin. Going back to what you said before, though, you were asking about why are people doing this. There are some people who are literally addicted to tanning. And there are studies that show that you get an endorphin high from tanning, and in fact you can block that sensation with narcotic blocking agents. So there is something physiological about needing a tan in some people. But for the majority of people who are using tanning beds, the people who are at risk for skin cancer later in life, these are young people who are on these beds. And one of the things that people are trying to do is to recommend that youth under 18 do not use tanning beds. This has sort of been a worldwide event. Well, we've looked at this, but we haven't published it yet. Here in Vancouver, we know that children as young as 13 to 15 are getting onto tanning beds. They're not being vetted at all. At the very least, there should be some way in which the youth of Canada are not going to be exposed to these devices unduly.
Well, as you know, Manitoba MP James Bazan, whose wife had a brush with skin cancer, is working on a private member's bill right now. He wants to enact larger and more specific warning labels be placed prominently on tanning beds, and he would like to recommend anyone under 18 not use a tanning bed. Would you support that kind of legislation from Ottawa?
I certainly would. I think that, I'd like to see these devices banned outright because I don't think they provide much benefit to people, but that is not going to happen given the fact that we haven't banned smoking in Canada. So I doubt that that's ever going to be an issue. I think that at least having people aware of the potential risks that they're going to undertake, like there are warnings on cigarette packages, is at least a starting place, and then people can make up their own minds.
Let's talk about this campaign from the Canadian Dermatology Association with posters of actual melanoma survivors urging young women to learn the facts about indoor tanning. So is that who is most at risk, is young people?
Well, people who have used tanning beds before the age of 35 are certainly at an increased risk, but I have seen in my own practice individuals who are definitely older than that who started tanning beds later in life who have also had skin cancer, specifically melanoma. I would attribute it to tanning beds because of a number of factors. One is that these are people who are tanning addicts and that they are in these devices 3-5 times a week for many months of the year. They have melanomas developing on areas that are generally not sites that we see melanoma developing, i.e. areas that are generally clothed, but not so when they're on a tanning bed. And these are people who I think are also at risk for developing skin cancers. Clearly, what we do know is that ultraviolet radiation has two effects, and this can't be denied. And that is, one, it has an effect on damaging the DNA in our skin. And two, it has an effect on modifying our immune system. Those two things together, reduced immune surveillance and damage to your DNA, which may not be corrected correctly, increase your risk for skin cancer. And certainly, the ultraviolet A component will accelerate the aging appearance of your skin as well. So for young people, if you're on those beds all the time, you're going to look leathery and old well before your time.
So it's a matter of heed the warnings. The warnings are out there, and like you said, we'll probably never see a total ban of tanning beds. But there's a lot of popular myths out there, too, with people saying, hey, I want to get my base tan because a tan will help protect me from the sun when I'm on holiday. That's not really true, is it?
No, I did work and published this almost more than 20 years ago now on tanning beds and showed at that time that the effective, if you will, sun protective factor or SPF that you get from a tanning bed in light-skinned people is about a 2 to 3. So that's not very much to begin with. I think also the fact that we demonstrated in that study that you could have an effect on the immune system means that there's nothing really positive about that protective base tan. The people who tan very easily, who are at least risk to get skin cancer, are also the people least likely to use these devices. We have an issue here where the people who do tend to burn easily anyway are going onto these devices under the misconception that they're doing something that's healthy for them.
Well, I know with this campaign, the Canadian Dermatology Association is also asking people to let your MP know if you support a ban on tanning beds, especially for people under 18, to protect the health and well-being of our youth. So we can encourage people to go to the website www.dermatology.ca/indoor tanning. they can get more information. But the Canadian Dermatology Association website is a great resource. And if there's something that people care about, and we should care about our health, we should contact our MP and support what Manitoba MP James Bazan is going to be introducing in March in Parliament. Doctor, really appreciate your time today. Thank you for this vital advice.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Dr. Jason Rivers, a member of the Canadian Dermatology Association. We got a hold of him in his office in Vancouver. So we're back right after this.